Shalom, welcome to Tactically Torah. I am Heath Hayes. Today is day 63 of Read the Bible in a Year. And we are in Deuteronomy chapter 14. We're reading from 14 to 15 and 16. Let's get started. You are the children of Yahweh your Elohim. Do not cut yourselves nor shave the front of your head for the dead. For you are a set-apart people to Yahweh your Elohim, and Yahweh has chosen you to be a people for himself, a treasured possession above all peoples who are on the face of the earth. Do not eat whatever is abominable. These are living creatures which you do eat: ox, sheep, and goat, deer and gazelle, and roebuck, and wild goat, and mountain goat, and antelope, and mountain sheep, and every beast that has a split hoof divided in two. Chewing the cud among the beasts you do eat. But of those chewing the cud, or those having a split hoof completely divided, you do not eat. Such as these, the camel, and the hare, and the rabbit, for they chew the cud but do not have a split hoof, they are unclean for you. And the pig is unclean for you, because it has a split hoof but does not chew the cud. You do not eat their flesh, or touch their dead carcasses. These you do eat of all that are in the waters. All that have fins and scales you do eat, and whatever does not have fins and scales you do not eat. It is unclean for you. Any clean bird you do eat, but these you do not eat: the eagle, and the vulture, and the black vulture, and the red kite, and the falcon, and the buzzard after their kinds, and every raven after its kind, and the ostrich, and the nighthawk, and the seagull, and the hawk after their kinds, the little owl, the great owl, and the white owl, and the pelican, and the carrion vulture, and the fisher owl, and the stork, and the heron after its kind, and the hoopoe, and the bat, and every creeping insect that flies is unclean for you. They are not eaten. Any clean bird you do eat. Do not eat whatever dies of itself. Give it to the sojourner who is within your gates to eat it, or to sell it to a foreigner, for you are a set-apart people to Yahweh your Elohim. Do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. You shall tithe without fail all the yield of your grain, and from the grain that the field brings forth year by year. And you shall eat before Yahweh your Elohim in the place where he chooses to make his name dwell. The tithe of your grain, and your new wine, and your oil, and of the firstlings of your herds and your sheep, so that you learn to fear Yahweh your Elohim always. But when the way is too long for you, so that you are not able to bring the tithe, or when the place where Yahweh your Elohim chooses to put his name is too far from you, and when Yahweh your Elohim is blessing you, then you shall give it in silver, and shall take the silver in your hand and go to the place. Verse 26, and you shall use the silver for 25, then you shall give it in silver, and shall take the silver in your hand and go to the place which Yahweh your Elohim chooses. And you shall use the silver for whatever your being desires, for cattle or sheep, for wine or strong drink, for whatever your being desires. And you shall eat there before Yahweh your Elohim, and you shall rejoice, you and your household. And do not forsake the Levite who is within your gates, for he has no part nor inheritance with you. At the end of every third year you bring out all the tithe of your increase that year, and store it up within your gates. And the Levite, because he has no portion nor inheritance with you, And the sojourner and the fatherless and the widow who are within your gates shall come and eat and be satisfied, so that Yahweh your Elohim does bless you in all the work which your hand in which you do. Chapter 15. At the end of every 7 years, you make a release of debts. This is the word of the release. Every creditor is to release what he has loaned to his neighbor. He does not require it of his neighbor or his brother, because it is called the release of Yahweh. Of a foreigner you could require it, but your hand is to release whatever is owed by your brother. Only there should be no poor among you. For Yahweh does greatly bless you in the land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you to possess as an inheritance. Only if you diligently obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim to guard to do all these commands which I am commanding you today. For Yahweh your Elohim shall bless you as he promised you, and you shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow. And you shall rule over many nations, but they do not rule over you. When there is a poor man with you, one of your brothers, within any of the gates in your land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you, do not harden your heart, nor shut your hand from your poor brother. For you shall certainly open your hand to him, and certainly lend him enough for his need, whatever he needs. Be on guard lest there be a thought of Belial in your heart, saying, the 7th year, the year of release is near, and your eye is evil against your poor brother, and you give him not. And he shall cry out to Yahweh against you, and it shall be a sin to you, or a sin in you. You shall certainly give to him, and your heart should not be grieved when you give it to him, because for this reason Yahweh your Elohim does bless you in all your works, and in all to which you put your hand. It's a good statement. For this reason, Elohim blesses so that you can be a blessing. Because the poor one does not cease from the land. By the way, that's Deuteronomy 15:10. Okay. Verse 11. Because the poor one does not cease from the land. Therefore I am commanding you, saying, you shall certainly open your hand to your brother, to your poor, and to your needy one in your land. When your brother is sold to you, a Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman, and shall serve you 6 years, then let him go free from you in the 7th year. And when you send him away free from you, let him not go away empty-handed. You shall richly supply him from your flock and from your threshing floor, and from your winepress, with that which Yahweh has blessed you with. Give to him. And you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Mitzrayim, and Yahweh your Elohim ransomed you. Therefore I am commanding you this word today, and it shall be, when he says to you, I do not go away from you, because he loves you and your house, because it is good for him with you, then you shall take an awl and thrust it through his ear to the door, and he shall be your servant forever. Do the same to your female servant. Let it not be hard in your eyes when you send him away free from you, for he has been worth a double hired servant in serving you 6 years. And Yahweh your Elohim shall bless you in all that you do. Set apart to Yahweh your Elohim all the firstborn males that do come from your herd or your flock. Do no work with the firstborn of your herd, nor shear the firstborn of your flock. You and your household are to eat it before Yahweh your Elohim year by year, in the place which Yahweh chooses. But when there is any defect in it, lame or blind, or has any evil defect, do not slaughter it to Yahweh your Elohim. Eat it within your gates, the unclean and the clean alike, as the gazelle and as the deer. And, only do not eat its blood. Pour it on the ground like water. So when it says unclean and clean alike, people who have been deemed unclean can still eat of this. That's what it means. Okay, so do not misconstrue whenever you see, like a few chapters ago, so talking about the unclean and clean alike within the sacrificial system and the slaughterings and all of that. So whenever it says that, it's not saying you eat the clean and the unclean animal. We just read you can eat the deer and the roebuck and the gazelle and the wild goat and all of that, right? You can eat the clean animals. But whenever you are taking your firstborn males and you're giving them to Yahweh, then you and your household are to eat it before Yahweh your Elohim year by year in the place which Yahweh chooses. But when there is any defect in it, lame or blind, or has any evil defect, do not slaughter it to Yahweh your Elohim. Eat it within your gates. Still eat of it. It's still good meat, right? But the unclean and the clean, individuals who are unclean, so the clean individuals should not withhold from those who are deemed as unclean in this. Okay, hope that makes sense. Chapter 16. Guard the new moon of Abib and perform the Pesach to Yahweh your Elohim. For in the new moon of Abib, Yahweh your Elohim brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim by night. And you shall slaughter the Pesach to Yahweh your Elohim from the flock and the herd in the place where Yahweh chooses to put his name. Eat no leavened bread with it. For 7 days you eat unleavened bread with it, bread of affliction, because you came out of the land of Mitzrayim in haste, so that you remember the day in which you came out of the land of Mitzrayim all the days of your life. And no leaven should be seen with you in all your border for 7 days, neither should any of the meat which you slaughter in the evening on the first day stay all night until morning. You are not allowed to slaughter the Pesach within any of your gates, which Yahweh your Elohim gives you. Let's see here. You are not allowed to slaughter the Passover lamb within your gates, which Yahweh your Elohim gives you. But at the place where Yahweh your Elohim chooses to make his name dwell, there you slaughter the Pesach in the evening, at the going down of the sun, and at the appointed time you came out of Mitzrayim. Excuse me. And you shall roast and eat it in the place which Yahweh your Elohim chooses. And in the morning you shall turn and go to your tents. 6 days you eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day there is a closing festival to Yahweh your Elohim. You do no work. Count 7 weeks for yourselves. Begin to count to 7 weeks from the time that you begin to put the sickle to the grain. And you shall perform the festival of Shavuot, or Pentecost, to Yahweh your Elohim, according to the voluntary offering from your hand which you give, as Yahweh your Elohim blesses you. And you shall rejoice before Yahweh your Elohim, and your son and your daughter and your male servant and your female servant, and the Levite who is within your gates, and the sojourner and the fatherless and the widow who are in your midst, at the place where Yahweh your Elohim chooses to make his name dwell. And you shall remember that you were a slave in Mitzrayim, and you shall guard to do these laws. Perform the festival of Sukkot for 7 days after the ingathering from your threshing floor and from your winepress. You shall rejoice in your festival, you and your son and your daughter and your male servant and your female servant and the Levite and the sojourner and the fatherless and the widow who are within your gates. For 7 days you shall celebrate to Yahweh your Elohim in the place which Yahweh chooses, because Yahweh your Elohim does bless you in all your increase and all the work of your hands. You shall be only rejoicing. 3 times a year all your males are to appear before Yahweh your Elohim in the place in which he chooses at the festival of Matzot, and at the festival of Shavuot, and the festival of Sukkot. And none should appear before Yahweh empty-handed, but each one with the gift of his hand according to the blessing of Yahweh your Elohim, which he has given you. Appoint judges and officers within all your gates, which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you according to your tribes, and they shall judge the people with righteous right ruling. Do not distort right ruling. Do not show partiality or take a bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and twists the words of the righteous. Follow righteousness, righteousness alone, so that you live and inherit the land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you. Do not plant for yourself any tree as an Asherah near the slaughter place of Yahweh for your Elohim that you make for yourself, and do not set up a pillar which Yahweh your Elohim hates. All right, that's 14, 15, and 16. Shalom.